Hello everyone, Eternal Flame here to talk about the insane, terrifying potential on what would happen if Megumi were to be free and the insane amount of potential that he would have and how he can unleash his full potential, because I don't even believe Sukuna has realized Megumi's full potential yet. However, before we get into this video, if you like anime content like this, be sure to subscribe. We got plenty more on the way, and let's get into it. Now, there are a lot of reasons why I'm confident that Megumi has so much and so high levels of potential, and I think it's going to be a lot easier to prove Megumi has extremely high potential in comparison to someone like Yuji. However, even now, I don't think we have seen the full levels of potential that Megumi has access to, even through Sukuna. I don't think Sukuna has shown the full potential and full levels of what Megumi should be physically capable of doing through 10 Shadows, and he's only touched the surface of it. The first thing I feel that needs to be established is the fact that of where Megumi's potential was outright stated to be at in the verse, and that is going to be just our baseline for where I think Megumi's potential is going to be, which is Gojo's own statement of Megumi having the potential to surpass him, and it is implied several times that Megumi has one of, if not the highest levels of potential in the verse, considering people like Yuji, Hikari, and Yuta all are stated to only have enough potential to reach Gojo's level, in comparison to Megumi, who is stated to have more potential than Yuji, and have the potential to even surpass Gojo one day. And like, this is really early on for Megumi too. Before he advances his abilities, etc., before he manages to even awaken a domain by that point, is when he gets that statement about him. However, it makes a lot of sense considering how hyped up the 10 Shadows technique has been up to this point, with the ability to create your own shikigami and use your own shikigami in battle, that each have their own unique abilities that are able to help you, which I'm going to quickly go over now since I already have a video going over each of the Shikigami's abilities of 10 Shadows, which is Divine Totality's amazing slashing strength and tracking abilities it has access to, Nue's lightning ability, which allows it to send ranged lightning bolts down if you are at Sukuna's level of cursed energy, or able to paralyze people with lightning, Orochi's amazing biting strength, Gamma's extremely fast tongue speed, pause, Divine Elephant's ability to shoot water and weigh a lot of people, which is extremely useful with Nue, Rapid Escape's ability to mass produce itself and create a smoke screen through that makes it incredibly hard to sense, because it's just basically everywhere, Madoka Deer's RCT on a mass area, which is like the biggest we have ever seen an RCT spread be spread before, Piercing Bull's ability to constantly grow in power the more it runs, as long as it's running in a straight line, and finally, the most powerful of them that we have seen, which is Maharaga's ability to adapt, its immense physical strength and speed it has access to, and its positive cursed energy sword, which is basically capable of one-shotting any cursed spirit. Now, this is already a pretty insane kit, with all of these abilities, on top of the fact that you're able to use the wheel to adapt to other attacks, and use your body as a medium for Maharaga beforehand. This is all an already insane kit. And you would think, okay, 10 Shadows can't really get better from here, right? Maharaga is easily the strongest Shikigami, right? Well, no. There is a Shikigami that is even further in strength than Maharaga, that has even better abilities than Maharaga. And I can already hear a lot of you typing, oh, is this going to be a theory on the 9th Shikigami? No, this is not a theory on the 9th Shikigami. What this is a theory on is a way Megumi can even surpass Maharaga and potentially combine all of the Shikigami into one powerful thing. One powerful Shikigami that would even surpass the levels of Maharaga. Now, I can already hear a lot of you telling me that I'm going insane right now, but let me cook for a moment, because this is not just possible, but this is already something that has happened before in the verse, and this is something that gets really underlooked in my opinion. There is actually two ways for Megumi to make a Shikigami that is even more powerful than Maharaga, which the first way is Totality, which a lot of you have probably predicted by this point is what I was going to talk about, which is the fact that when a Shikigami dies, its power gets split among the other cursed spirits and the other Shikigami. So if you were to hypothetically kill all of the Shikigami but one, which is Maharaga, and you had all of the power get transferred into Maharaga, you would just create this hypothetical chimera of ultimate abilities and make an extremely strong Shikigami that has access to all of these abilities at once. And the reason why it's obviously stronger than Maharaga is because, well, it's Maharaga plus. So that is one way Megumi could potentially surpass Maharaga, but that wasn't the way I was talking about. No, the way I was talking about is basically what I like to call temperate totality. And some of you guys might be confused at what I'm referring to, but I want to take us all the way back to when Megumi fought Todo for the first time. And this is a really underrated thing about Megumi that is shown that Megumi can do. Megumi is able to combine his Shikigami without turning them into totalities. because he does that with Gamma and Nue, which is how he's able to make the frogs that have wings on it. And Gege actually goes on to explain it at the end of that battle that it was him combining the two of them and not just a new Shikigami. Which means it is possible for Megumi to combine Shikigami without actually needing to kill them, and creating several versions of it too, because it wasn't like either of them had a cloning ability, yet he created several of the toads with wings, and they were all able to just keep up with Megumi already and move him out the way. But that's not the point. What's the more important point is, it is possible for Megumi to be able to combine the traits of the Shikigami in a temporal form, and he can do several of them at a time, which that already has some insane potential. For example, he could hypothetically make several small Maharagas that each are infused with one of the Shikigami's abilities, like Madoka Deer, to heal it so it can constantly adapt before it forms into one large Shikigami. Or by fusing Nue to Maharaga, finally being able to give Maharaga a way to beat Angel since Angel can fly. Anyways, or just like, there are so many Shikigami combinations that are possible that can be pulled off through Megumi's abilities. And it's just absolutely insane. And that's just like 1 + 1. Imagine if Megumi combines all 9 of the Shikigami, and maybe the 10th one, and whatever that thing's insane ability is, into one extremely strong Shikigami, and how strong that would be. But that, my friends, is just the start of how strong I think Megumi's ability can actually be. Oh yeah, it goes much deeper. So let's have some fun. There has always been something else that's been extremely interesting to me about Megumi's domain, which is an ability that most people don't really talk about, which is the ability Megumi has to turn himself into clones of shadows that can take hits from him and substitute him for damage, which is by far the most interesting part of Megumi's domain for me. Because sure, he can create several members of his Shikigami and have them take hits, but what's even more impressive is his ability to create his own clones of himself to take damage for himself. This is due to an ability that he has access to within his domain, which is deciding the very interpretation of his shadow itself, and shaping the shadow of his domain, with his domain just being an expansion of his very shadow itself. And this is an extremely powerful thing, because through this power, he's not just able to create several Shikigami and shadow versions of the Shikigami to help him, he is also able to create clones of himself, which shows one very powerful thing about the 10 Shadows technique. That the 10 Shadows technique goes far beyond the simple creation of Shikigami. Because of the fact that Megumi is able to clone the user, he is also able to drown people inside of his own shadows, as he showed against Reggie. The 10 Shadows go far beyond summoning simple Shikigami, and that is what I also believe Sukuna had seen in the technique. The freedom that came with the 10 Shadows. The freedom that came with the ability of using the 10 Shadows, which Sukuna wanted. Because Sukuna saw Megumi's power as a complete treasure and power, and Megumi relying on Maharaga was a waste of talent. I want to get this out of the way now. Sukuna did not want Megumi for Maharaga. Like, he wanted Megumi before he even knew what Maharaga was, and that just like confirmed that he wanted him even more than before. And I believe this interpretation-like ability, the ability to shape the shadows into the very interpretation that Megumi had in mind for them, is the potential that both Sukuna and Gojo saw in Megumi. The potential to shape the shadow into your own will in exchange for enough cursed energy and a creative enough mind, to be able to create a powerful enough construct or Shikigami that you can use as you see fit, which would be an insanely overpowered curse technique, and it would be fitting of a curse technique able to rival the Limitless plus 6 eyes. And Megumi now should have more than enough cursed energy to make any interpretation possible that he could possibly want. Because I want to put this into every single one of your minds right now of how much cursed energy that he should have had all grown into him because of everything Sukuna has done in his body. Sukuna in his body hurt 2 of his really good friends, and then through Megumi's own technique killed his own sister, the person who he saw as the closest person to him, his own sister, the person he cared about the most, the person he was fighting for, the person that he became a Jujutsu sorcerer to help. And Megumi had to deal with those emotions for a month, alone, while Sukuna paraded around in his own body. I want you to keep this in mind for a similar comparison. Yuta Akotsu, upon seeing Rika dying, managed to turn Rika into a Shikigami himself, and got near boundless levels of cursed energy as a result of that. Now you're effectively doing that, but much worse, to someone who has much more potential than even Yuta Akotsu does in Megumi Fushiguro. Imagine all the massive amounts of cursed energy he is going to have, especially considering he's had to sit on these emotions for a month. Sit on the depression, the negative emotions, just for a month straight of having to deal with the fact that he was the one who killed the person he loved most, because he does see it as him. However, there is one more thing, one more way that I can see Megumi getting even stronger. One more thing Megumi needs to master in order to fully awaken his strength that has been set up to him from the beginning. The way that if he masters this and he masters his interpretation, it will allow him to reach the levels of Gojo Satoru and even surpass it, in my opinion. And that is relying on himself. Now, this has been set up for a very, very long time, ever since the beginning, that Megumi needed to rely on himself more, to stop underestimating himself and stop relying on his ace in the hole. As the conversation right before Megumi had awakened his domain implied, Megumi had relied on his ace in the hole of Maharaga and always being able to do a double mutual kill if it came down to it, which was hindering his ability because it was hindering his mental state. Because he was not able to envision an even stronger version of himself. A stronger version of himself in the near future, because he always knew he would have something else to rely on that would always be stronger than him. But Megumi ended up somewhat surpassing that mental state in his fight against the Finger Bearer, even though he kinda returned to it in Shibuya. But I don't think he has reached the ultimate point of self-reliance yet. I think the ultimate point of self-reliance that Megumi is going to need to reach is going to need something to happen first. The death of all 10 of his shikigami, the death of all 10 of his shadows, and I think that's going to be the ultimate catalyst for allowing Megumi to become even stronger. Because I think if all 10 shikigamis die and he interprets his shadow right, he can become the ultimate chimera of the shikigami. He can become potentially the 10th shikigami that some people have been theorizing about. The 10th shikigami could be Megumi, and he could have the abilities of all 9 shikigami, being the ultimate totality with the ultimate interpretation of the soul. Because we know the 10 shadows does apply to the caster as well. We know this thanks to Megumi's domain and Megumi being able to substitute his own body for a shadow, as well as being able to create clones of himself. We also know that through Sukuna's direct ability to summon the wheel onto himself and use himself as a catalyst for Maharaga to adapt, as well as potentially himself to adapt. That's a bit more up in the air, but we know for a fact he can use himself to adapt for Maharaga at least. And we also know all of the shadows are directly connected to his own soul and directly connected to his own shadows. They are a part of him. But Megumi has been far too reliant on his shikigami all this time. He's able to fight alongside them, but he is too reliant on them. So I believe Megumi's ultimate next steps that he is going to need to take is eliminating all of his shikigami and absorbing all of their powers into himself. Their cursed energy, their abilities, becoming the ultimate chimera. Because this is also something I found very interesting. The name of Megumi's domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden. And Chimera is the main word I want to focus on, which is the simple fact of Megumi becoming a chimera because of all of his abilities, absorbing all of those abilities into himself. And through that, through Megumi absorbing all of his abilities, becoming self-reliant, and being able to change the interpretation of his own shadows freely to manipulate them, it would allow Megumi to reach a godly level. One that I am confident that would let him become one of the top tiers, if not the top tier of the verse, creating an all-new power ceiling of the verse. And 10 Shadows has been set up to be so incredibly busted, which is why it makes a lot more sense why Sukuna wanted it so incredibly badly. The freedom that comes with the 10 Shadows, the massive potential you have to make it even further and make it even better with your own interpretation of the shadows, it all just makes sense of how strong it is. Especially because Megumi now has the cursed energy to be able to use interpretation so much more freely and so much more powerfully. So I think if Megumi ever does get free, he is going to be a nightmare for Sukuna and Kenjaku to fight against. Because now he's going to be this extremely powerful beast. One that is much more powerful than any 10 Shadows user in history, because he's not going to use it in the standard way. He is going to use it in his own way. And the steps have already been set up. Sukuna has already started to show him the way of how to interpret the shadow and how to interpret it differently, through doing that with one of the divine dogs and changing its form against Shirozu. He has shown it's possible. Now it's just about Megumi taking that interpretation and making that interpretation his own. That is why I believe Megumi has the potential to surpass Gojo and Sukuna, and why he will be the strongest in the show if these happen, and if he truly does end up ascending. This is the way that I can see him ascending. So to summarize the video, what we basically can guarantee is that Megumi can do Divine Totality and combine all of his shikigami into one massive one, or just do a partial totality like he did with Gamma and Nue extremely early on, and he has an extreme amount of cursed energy from the fact that he has had to deal with the fact he kind of made his sister go bye-bye, and then finally he has an ultimate ability of interpretation and maybe a power that can come from being fully self-reliant, which is looking extremely great for Megumi, especially because Megumi is stated to have the potential to reach Gojo's level, and surpass Gojo's level so long as his mental state is in the right place. And I do think his mental state will soon be in the right place, because he has slowly been losing every single connection he has. With Sumiki now gone, he has nothing to rely on other than himself. And while I think Yuji might help give him the final push to get out, I don't think he'll be reliant on Yuji anymore. I think he'll be reliant on himself, and he will ascend to a new level of power that hasn't been seen before. However, that's just my opinion on Megumi's potential and where I think Megumi can end up being. I want to see what you guys' thoughts are, and if you guys actually learned anything from this vid, or if you guys think I'm just completely wrong. Anyways, I'm gonna see you all later. Peace.